Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Devotions. Pastor Steve here walking with you in God's Word, and we're finishing up this narrative of Naomi and Ruth and Boaz as we're in Ruth chapter 4. And we just ended off this last video of being able to have Boaz step towards Ruth, even though Ruth was put in that place by Naomi to be able to be a servant of Boaz, but also Boaz understanding the law and knows that he needs to go to the nearest kinsman redeemer of the family to be able to ask the question if that kinsman redeemer would like to redeem Naomi, her land, her property, the family, frankly Ruth as well that goes with that. And so that's where we have in the narrative, Boaz is now at the town gate, which is really the town hall. He calls together 10 witnesses because that's the number of legal counsel, legal rights, and being able to make these contracts and covenants to be seen between asking this kinsman redeemer if he's going to redeem or he's the next in line. And Boaz will then take the step forward into redeeming Naomi, buying back the land of Elimelech and her husband. Most likely they sold that land before they left for Moab, but she in returning could acquire that land back if she would pay for it. Well, obviously we understand this whole narrative is that Naomi is empty, is full of emptiness, even empty with her possessions. And then we get to see that narrative of God intervening, God putting people and circumstances in front of Naomi and Ruth to be able to fill her. And so we get to see once again Naomi from emptiness to fullness, especially in this chapter 4 of Ruth. Let's read together. When Ruth went home and talked to Naomi about everything that went on, meanwhile Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer he had mentioned came along, Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here," and they did so. Then he said to the kinsman redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the price of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here, and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line." "I will redeem it," he said. Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land from Naomi and from Ruth the Moabitess, you acquire the dead man's widow in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." The name and lineage, especially when it is ownership of land and the possessions, we get to see that it's a family deal. And so in acquiring the land, you also acquire a widow from the lineage of that family. And this met the kinsman redeemer in a little bit different way. If he would take on that land and then being able to also take on this widow to actually be his wife, and then he has children with this widow, this wife, all of a sudden what happens to his land, his family name that he already owns, rather than just acquiring Naomi's land? And so it does a quick 180 because this man says, "Well, I can't take on that responsibility because it means something for my lineage as well." At this, verse 6, the kinsman redeemer said, "Then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So the kinsman redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And he removed his sandal. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today you are witnesses." Then the elders and all those at the gate said, "We are witnesses." May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. We get to see the ancestral understanding of, okay, Rachel and Leah. Actually, the 12 tribes of Israel came through Rachel and Leah and Jacob. But here's peculiar as well. At the end here, it talks about Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, right? Judah is that fourth born in Israel from Rachel and Leah. And then there was a blessing, and there was a lineage from there that would actually come through to be the Messiah. But even more peculiar is that Perez, whom Tamar bore Judah to, was also under the same Levirate law, as we get to see, as what's happening here with Boaz and Ruth, a kinsman redeemer. Perez being that kinsman redeemer to Tamar. And so we get to see this, especially in the lineage and ancestral lineage of the Christ and of David, King David. God is working in certain ways of bringing Gentiles into this lineage, bringing kinsmen redeemers into this lineage. It's not just a traditional way of going about family and building a family. God is intervening to be able to actually include all. So much so that at the end of Ruth here is written such a particular way that it's pretty masterful. Verses 13 through 17, we get to see not only Naomi coming from empty at the beginning chapters to the fullness that she has, but we have in the Hebrew writing here in these verses the exact same number of words as it began in the first chapter. And so it's such a tie to be able to have this kind of poetic, linguistic form to be able to say, look at this emptiness. This is where Naomi was, and now this is where Naomi is, in the exact same number of words. So verse 13, it says, So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. Then he went to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, and cared for him. The women lying there said, Naomi has a son. And they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. This then is the family line of Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron the father of Ram. Ram the father of Amminadab. Amminadab the father of Nahshon. Nahshon the father of Salmon. Salmon the father of Boaz. Boaz the father of Obed. Obed the father of Jesse. And Jesse the father of David. It's not just going from empty of Naomi to fullness of Naomi. It's Israel empty, not having a king in amongst the time of Judges, to be able to actually have a king, David, as it goes forth, to be able to actually restore Israel. It goes from unrest to full rest. You see how this narrative is all-inclusive. God working in and with his people. We get to see the narrative of Naomi and Ruth and the kinsman redeemer Boaz. But now we also get to see Israel and God and his promise of Messiah, Jesus. We get to see Israel having no king and people doing whatever they saw fit, to Israel having a king and having structure and order in the lineage of the Messiah, the Christ, through the Davidic line, through the king, the throne, and his name is Jesus, later and later on in the generations. God always working, God always ministering, God always pursuing his people and bringing them from emptiness to fullness, from unrest to rest, from no king to king forever, from emptiness to the fullness in life everlasting, because he's going to give rest to his people through his son Jesus Christ in the fullness that we know it of everlasting rest. To that we can say, thanks be to God. Have a blessed day.